This is my friend James. I'm Lee. We are here together on the Unlearning Channel. You know, James, the title of your book is Unseen, and I also kicked around the idea of calling this the Unseen Channel, which kind of has the implication that nobody's going to watch it, which may be the case. It maybe is a very fitting name, but for right now, we're the Unlearning Channel because we want to talk about things that we have learned that we don't want to have learned anymore. We want to unlearn those
Good
things.
way to put it.
We've, yeah, learned so many things that have infiltrated our hearts and minds and beliefs and have caused us to believe things that are not true and right. And they've really caused a lot of damage to us.
And you were talking about how the damage that can be done by things that we believe that aren't true.
Hmm.
The worst damage is the damage we do to ourselves by the things that we believe as true that aren't, and
Hmm.
we don't know it.
Hmm.
And that applies to 100% of people. Every one of us has learned, our learning began before we came out of the womb. And these things stay with us for a long, long time. In fact, they stay with us until we unlearn what we've learned.
Hmm.
But since everything that we have learned we're sure is true, we don't question it.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, here we are at our age, Lee. I'm
Hmm.
quite a bit older than you, but both of us have learned a volume of stuff and we've never questioned it.
Hmm.
So we don't even know what we know. We
Hmm.
don't even know all the things that we've learned. Yet, because we have believed those things, we are living like they're true. And so every one of us, to some degree, is living a lie
Hmm.
because everything that we've learned, we're sure is true. I
Hmm.
mean, mom and dad taught us, our teacher taught us, we taught ourselves.
World confirms it.
Yeah, the world, yeah,
Yeah.
our emotions confirm it too.
Yeah, how we feel confirms it.
That's been a major thing for me is dealing with the fact that I can know absolutely because God has shown me that something is true, and yet my emotions and my experience are totally contradictory to what God has shown me is true.
Hmm.
What do I do with that?
Also, when we know something, if it gets challenged, we'll fight to the death,
Yes.
defend it. It could be something that hurts us, that
Yeah.
is actively not good for us, and we know it's not good for us, and we'll still not consciously fight to the death for it, not consciously defend it, uh, but just instinctively. If somebody's pushing back against the fact that I don't like myself and saying, no, I do like you, then I'm gonna, whoa, no, 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 you can't. You can't like me because I'm not likable. So why would you
Yeah.
like? That doesn't make any sense. I may want them to like me, but I can't accept it because it's hitting that thing that in me is saying, but nobody can like me because I'm not likable.
I had a book I got many, many years ago that had a profound effect on me, and to this day, what I learned in that book. And it was simply a book by William Backus, a psychologist, and it was called Telling Yourself the Truth. And his supposition was that we lie to ourselves, we believe these lies, and that affects our emotions, it affects our behavior, it affects our thinking, it affects everything
Mm.
simply because we are telling ourselves constantly things that aren't true. Back then, a doctor had diagnosed me as manic depressive or bipolar. I mean, and this has been decades ago. And that book literally ended my bipolar experience because I learned about all the things that I was saying to myself that were literally causing my emotional up and down. And I was a case to live with. I mean, my family had a lot of problems with me. I was never an abusive person except to myself.
Hmm.
And as I began to learn the things that I was saying to myself that were causing me to have these violent emotional fluctuations, I was freed
Yeah.
because I learned to not say to myself things that weren't true and to say to myself things that were true
Mm.
that God said about me.
Hmm.
Of course, the problem is that if you're a Christian, many Christians know the terrible things that God says about them all the time, quote
Right.
unquote. God doesn't say anything terrible about anybody, but if they are sure that God says
Oh.
terrible things about them all the time and they start repeating those things to themselves, then they end up in a position mentally that is not good.
Your family was having a hard time with you, but it was you abusing yourself. But I can only imagine if they're trying to love you and you hate you and are abusing you, then how good are you going to be to somebody who's clearly lying to you about you being valuable and important? You're going to go at them and say, you don't get it. Like I'm no good. You're trying to trick me or something, and that's gonna cause like you because you said you weren't abusive, and I know, and I don't think you were, and I went through the same thing with my family where I was just we'll go in later videos. I'm sure we'll unpack some of our own stuff. But yeah, I was in a spot where, yeah, they were coming to me and looking for love. And I was just like, why are you coming to me? Like, I'm awful. I'm the worst.
Yeah.
So how are you going to get that from me? And they weren't, so it wasn't abusive, but it was too. Because we were abused. We were like, I'm abusing others, not out of I'm punching you or, stealing from you or something, but just out of that outpouring of who we were or thought we were, and believed we were.
Well, the thing about the abusing, until you said it just now, I had never really thought about it because I was not physically abusive,
Right,
wasn't even verbally abusive,
right.
and yet, in a sense, I was because I would I would be so emotional about things. My family had to walk on eggshells around me. I wasn't pleasant and I wasn't loving,
Hmm.
and my family loved me, but if
Hmm.
you got in the way of my business, then I would be angry.
Hmm.
And I'm going to have to talk to them about that and find out
Yeah, you
because
might need to apologize. Yeah.
that's
I
amazing.
talked to Sandra, your wife. I've talked to her
Yeah.
uh, a few times, and she's confirmed that. Again, never said, yeah, never smacked us or whatever. But yeah, just he was a tough guy to live with, and I know that without being, physical, just that walking on eggshells. I
Yeah,
do know, and people can pick it up. You know, when you're in a room with somebody, I shouldn't probably talk to this person.
yeah. But the thing that's so amazing is they watched me change.
Hmm.
They watched what happened that started the change and they observed it and they it it came to a point where they literally embraced everything I was learning because they saw the immense change in my personality and in my emotions and in my behavior.
Yeah, that change, that same thing happened to me. And I remember my son, it was at a time, right? It was a year before my divorce. And my son came to me later and said that the divorce was so devastating to him because our house felt so much more peaceful. And he just got so blindsided by a divorce happening because he just knew that the environment of the home, the spirit of the home had changed, had shifted.
So this was after you began to change. after all of our meetings and you would change and so then the divorce your home had become more peaceful
Yeah,
and but the divorce because your wife was not really happy with the changes. Uh,
right, right.
and okay, so that's I just
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yep. And he was just so blindsided by it because
it didn't make
that,
sense.
yeah, because it didn't make sense because that same thing happened to me where it was kind of this cloud over me a lot of the time, not all the time, again, just like you, it was never, shoving or yelling or anything like that. It was just a cloud. And kind of a mask, just a pretending, just a surface level, like let's just not rock the boat or whatever. And then, yeah, after experiencing all the changes, of the truth, replacing a lot of lies, um, yeah, he just noticed that it was a different environment, and he felt safe, he felt protected, he felt loved by me. And
Wow.
I mean, I've loved him and protected him before, but it was almost, I think, probably because I was like supposed to. That's awful. It sounds awful, we think, for a parent to say, but that's what we're doing on this channel is there isn't anything awful. There's the things that are and were and have happened or didn't happen, and then the impact and the effect and what we do with it and where we go from there. And so, yeah, I wasn't, yeah, I never yelled in the house or anything, but he just saw this piece that wasn't there before and felt it.
You'd never shared that with me. That's
Um,
that's
yeah, he
pretty
only told
cool.
me maybe just a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And then, yet, still afterwards, even after the divorce, he struggled, but there was still peace in the house, and it was still hard. And again, back to the first video and things that we've talked about, it doesn't make things not hard. Like the
Yeah.
doesn't make things go easy. It just makes us more capable and peaceful and loving throughout the things that happen in life.
You know, over and over you've realized things that you were believing that weren't true that you had never questioned,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
And it was just because we just kept talking. And
Hmm.
I had already been through and was still going and am today
Still
going
going.
through
Yeah.
it. The day will come when um, I many of the things that I believe right now that are not true, that I don't know are not true, and I don't
Hmm.
know that I believe them, but they're affecting me, and I can see the results in my behavior, in my emotions, in the way I perceive things,
Hmm.
and I don't, I know now. Well, it's like people hate to find out they're wrong. Nobody wants to believe they're wrong, me included.
Hmm.
However, I have learned that when I learn that I am believing something that isn't true, as uncomfortable and unpleasant as that experience can be,
Hmm.
the result is always wonderful. I resist somebody or just even realizing that I'm wrong. There are times when I resist it. I don't want to believe I'm wrong, but I've learned from experience that that's a good point to be
Yeah.
because there's something true that I haven't realized that truth is going to just knowing that truth is going to change my life. And 100% of the time, it's that way. I find out through various ways that something I have known, something I've been absolutely sure of. I find out it's not true, and I find out what truth replaces that lie. And once I've embraced the new truth, even though I may emotionally find it uncomfortable, my emotions literally improve and it's a wonderful experience, and it's happened to me thousands of times over
Hmm.
the last 30 years, thousands
Yeah.
of times, to the
Yeah.
point now where I love to find out when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I can tell you I don't like the experience sometimes, but I love to find out because anytime I'm confronted with something where I have been sure I was right and now I'm questioning that I was right and I accept that I was wrong and here's what the truth is, in every instance, my life improves.
Isn't it funny too that even though we know that, we're still like hesitant to go through that process? I was thinking how there's a comfort in the things that we're used to, even
Mhm.
though they're awful
Yes,
a lot of
yes,
the times.
yes,
And
yes.
even though I've done the same's happened to me where I will I will a lot of times, not even on purpose, understand that something I'm believing isn't true and it's hurting me. And then I'll see what the truth is in that. And I'll go, oh, that's such a relief. And I'll just go, why did I like live with that for so long? But it's also when you get so used to living with something, you you are just you can't even see you just well that's just the way I am, you know? That's just the way I am. I just am angry at people in traffic or um it just bugs me when somebody does this or says this or um just any number of things. We're just that's just me. That's how I am. And yet it's almost always not. If it's not something good and true and full of light and goodness and love, it's not something that's true of us, but we're just so used to it. You can't even, first of all, you can't even really see it. Second of all, if you do, you just go, well, I don't know what to do different. So, oh well, I just need to learn to Monique, a mutual friend of ours, she talked about a person she knew who had a stroke,
Hmm.
and and their answer to that was if I go downstairs, I got to have a handrail on this side because this other side doesn't work. So I need a handrail on this side. So the person became accommodating to the brokenness and the sickness, as opposed to doing the rehab to get it recovered, to undo that damage, And I think we do that because it's just easier it's not easier, but we, for some reason, think it's easier to just put up with it instead of be free from it.
You said something that set my mind a little bit in a different direction. Um, Thinking about the lies that we believe and how we'll cling to them, we'll hold on to them,
Mhm.
and it reminded it reminded me of the subject of demon possession.
Hmm.
You know, people
Hmm.
talk about demon possession and they're so afraid of demon possession. And I learned so long ago that the understanding the modern church and modern believers have on demon possession is absolutely incorrect. But it's obvious. You look at people and if that's what you've been taught, that they could be possessed by a demon, then that's what pops into your mind. This person's demon possessed.
Hmm.
Um, I do believe in demon possession, but not like anybody I know. C.S. Lewis understood demon possession the way that I understand it.
Hmm.
You can see it clearly in his book, The Great Divorce. Um, Demons cannot possess. they cannot inhabit and they can't possess a human being, but a human being can possess a demon. And that's what demon possession is when people possess their demons.
Mm.
And it can be in the form of lies. It can be in the form of false information, fake information.
Yeah.
And people possess that stuff. And when they possess it, it controls them. But not because it's in control of their life, but because they've possessed it and they live their life in accordance with what they've possessed. They live their life in accordance to what is important to them, to what they believe is true. And anyway, that's when you were saying that, that came to mind. I thought, why not introduce that subject? That could disturb some people that are listening to this, but there's some people the light just came on. Wait a minute. Demon possession isn't the demon possessing me, it's me possessing the demon. Well, I don't want to possess a demon.
Mm.
There's then that you're on the track. You if you're possessing a demon right now that you don't want to possess, we'll get into how to unpossess. It has to do with unlearning, the
Mm.
Unlearning Channel. And
Hmm.
it's marvelous. I guess in a sense, all those years when my family was walking on eggshells around me, I was possessing knowledge, understanding about myself and about life that was wrong. But
Mm.
I was holding on to that knowledge. And because I was holding on to that knowledge, I was living like it was true. And everybody around me was suffering the effects of it, which in the effects oftentimes, mostly what I remember now that I think about it, my family would say I wasn't there. Now, I'm
Mm.
not sure that was the walking on eggshells, but
Mm.
I wasn't there. I was in another world. It was business and work and labor and trying to do the things that would make me important.
Mm.
I never believed I was important. I never believed that I was worth loving. Even though I had a wonderful family that loved me, to me, I wasn't valuable. I wasn't worth loving. And that's changed now. I know how valuable I am to God. I know how worth loving I am because He loved me enough to give His Son.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty valuable. So
Yeah.
are you. And so
Yeah.
is everybody listening to this.
Yeah. Everybody. Absolutely everybody. I remember the moment that I've heard the cliche saying, if you were the only person on earth, Jesus would still come and die for you. And I remember,
I've heard that. I always wondered about that.
yeah. And
I understand it now, but I did.
I like I absolutely understand it and believe it now. I, it doesn't know when it hit me, it was one of the best days of my life, but that's been years ago now. And so I haven't got the exact same excitement, which is sad. We want to have that excitement, which we can, and we talk about that too. We've talked about, or we will talk about how the stuff that God's given us is present all the time. It's always available. It's never, He's
He
gonna
never
give it
takes it
again.
away.
What's that?
He never takes away an
Yeah.
opportunity or a blessing. What
No.
happens is that we don't take it. It's there,
Right.
always waiting for. If God's
Yeah.
offered it, it's always ours, but we may not take it, may not know how to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And so when it made sense in me that I was valuable enough that if I were the only person on earth that needed saving, He would have done the exact same thing. That was, yeah, incredibly powerful. Before that, I I didn't buy it. I just thought, well, it's that verse, God so loved the world.
Hmm.
You, you go, okay, well, if He loves the whole world, then He doesn't really love me. He just loves the whole world,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know? Um,
Gotcha.
but he does, it's each of us, just like kids, like I don't run out of it for each of my children. I don't say, well, I spent 70% of it over on this one, so I've only got 30% left for the other ones. Um, I say, no, you all can get 100. You can all get 100%. And that's what God feels towards us. Every single one of us gets 100%. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I had no idea about that. I couldn't believe it. Something was blocking me from it. And I forget what caused me to be unblocked from it, but I just remember it hitting me one day. I mean, knowing that he loved me already and that I was very important to him, and that saying came into my mind. If you were the only person on earth, Jesus still would have come and died just for you. And it popped in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, he would have. Like that's an incredible thing. Not
Yeah.
even just incredible. I mean, I was beyond, it wasn't humbled. I mean, I guess, but I was loved. I was loved. Like, I, it's not a theological thing. It's an experiential. And yeah, I mean, it's somebody going and saying, you're the one that matters a great deal to me. Not everybody, everybody does, but like you're the one. And golly, that's a game changer. That's such a big deal. And it provides a lot of security, just like my son felt with the divorce, how it just rocked him because he couldn't fathom how a safe, loving environment that was populated with a dad who was just 100% in on him and his siblings and his mom, that it could fall apart.
Yeah.
That it was just so it was, I mean, it was a good and a bad thing in a weird way. And I think we all struggle with that, even maybe people who recognize that God is good or loves them or whatever, when there's a hard thing, they're just almost caught off guard, you know? Like, well, and that causes some confusion in people. I think it can. They go, "Well, wait a second. I thought he loved me. Why is this happening then?"
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We can get into that subject. That's a major subject that you and I haven't spent a lot of time talking about. But if God is love, then why does this happen? And why does that happen? And
that perception, how we're like, well, wait, it's not like, oh, why bad things happen to good people, or if God was loving, then why is the world a mess or something.
yeah,
But there that piece where like you even knowing your dad loves you, when things crumble, there's that cognitive dissonance of, and that's where I think Satan jumps in.
yeah,
He goes,
yeah.
see, he doesn't love you.
We're moving into the subject of realities.
Mm,
It's a subject today that the word is used increasingly. Two people can be looking at the exact same thing at the exact same time and yet see two different things.
yeah.
A car accident, two people see the car accident and they both have different perspectives of what happened.
Hmm.
And you wonder how can that be? You and I saw the same thing, but we didn't see the same thing. We were looking in the same direction at the same event, and
Mm,
yet what stood out to you or what happened from your perspective is totally different from what I think happened.
yeah.
How do you deal with that? I mean, what causes that?
Yeah.
We all see things differently. No matter what it is, nobody sees the exact same thing the exact same way.
Hmm.
And you wonder about it. Have you ever been looking for something and looked for it and you've looked for it and you've looked for it and you gave up and then come back and look for it and you finally find it right where you looked the first time.
Yeah.
I remember years ago we were driving down a road in Telluride, Colorado, and we're looking for a sign, and we're driving along and we can't find it. And I thought it's got to be there. And I turned around and we went down the same road again. And this time the sign was there. And I thought, strange. It was there, then it wasn't there, and then it was there. And I thought, this is really strange.
Hmm.
But I realized that what was controlling what I saw was what I was expecting. And I had been expecting one thing, and because I was expecting one thing, this sign to look a certain way, when I looked directly at the sign, it wasn't what I was expecting, so it didn't exist. I couldn't even see it. And when we circle back around and we're driving down the road real slowly looking, and suddenly there's the sign right where I had looked before. But because I was expecting a certain thing, it it didn't look like what I expected, so I couldn't even see what I was looking for. And it was right there in front of me.
Hmm.
Um, it's amazing how what we think we know, whether we know it or not, doesn't matter. If we think we know it, then we know it. And
Hmm.
if what we know we believe is true, that determines what we expect. And what we expect in absolute terms determines what we see and don't see, hear and don't hear, feel and don't feel, experience and don't experience. The Bible's filled with this subject. However, the word that is in the Bible that the Bible uses and the way it's translated prevents us from really realizing what this subject is. It's the subject is hope. The Bible is full of hope. The trouble is the word that is elpidas in the Greek. That's the way I pronounce it. Others may pronounce it differently, but we all spell it the same.
Hmm.
The word elpidas actually means expectation, and the verb would mean to expect. And this is a critical subject because what we expect determines what we see and what we don't see. And our expectations are going along and they're going around in the background of our thinking constantly. We don't even know what's really happening in our minds.
Hmm.
But expectations then affect what we see and what we don't see. And so you've got a number of things. First of all, knowledge. Is the knowledge we have true knowledge or is it fake knowledge? Fake knowledge is just knowledge that only exists in somebody's mind. A lie is fake knowledge because a lie is something that isn't real. It's not real.
Hmm.
It's made up.
Hmm.
But it nevertheless, when somebody believes a lie or believes fake knowledge that may come to them not in the form of a lie, but in the form of ignorance.
Hmm.
Somebody just tells them something because that's what they think and they know, and it's not true. But
Hmm.
they tell somebody else who says, "Oh, well, gee, I didn't know that," and they had no thoughts to contradict what they're told. So, well, I've heard this and that's true. And
Hmm.
so, what we know and then what we determine that is true, we believe it, then that determines our expectations, which determines how we experience life. But all of that fits into why different people see the same thing, but yet don't see the same thing. They see something totally different,
Hmm.
or they expect something totally different. It's a massive subject, and the Bible's about this. But from my reading of translations, since I've read many translations, and since I have a profound understanding of ancient Greek, um, the Bible's full of the subject, but I have never yet to this day uh, talked with anybody or heard anybody speak about this subject in any depth.
Hmm.
Um, it's touched on all the time by people.
Hmm.
Um, they touch about the things that I talk about are talked about by everybody. And in fact, I tell this to people all the time. There's nothing I can tell you that you don't already know.
Hmm.
Leave you. There's nothing I can tell you that you don't already know. I know that because God said He wrote His instruction in our hearts and our minds.
Hmm.
So everything we need to know has been written inside of us. We've got it.
Hmm.
That's not the problem. The problem is all the things that we know that we think are true but aren't. And we don't know that this and that. In fact, we don't even it's such a massive subject. We don't know what we know. And so, if we know things that are not true, oftentimes we don't know it because it's an assumption in us that it's true and we never consider it further. Yet,
Why would you question
why would you question it? Yet
it?
that knowledge we've grabbed a hold of, we've possessed, as we were talking about earlier,
Hmm.
we've possessed that knowledge, and having possessed that knowledge controls everything about our lives. And when you are willing to uh, have what you know challenged, it can be wonderful. Now, sometimes what you know is true, and you can have that challenged. I love for people to challenge me. I love for people to tell me I'm wrong. Okay,
Hmm.
if I'm wrong, how am I wrong? Explain it to me because I might be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I want to know it.
Right.
And because I know the benefit of finding out that you're wrong. Most people are terrified to find out they're wrong. People have to be right. Their identity is based on being right. My identity is not based on right. If I'm wrong, I want to know it, and I want to know what to replace the wrongness that I have. We're back to our unlearning channel. We're talking about unlearning things. So
Hmm.
anyway, the issue of um, different people seeing the same thing yet seeing something totally different, um, it 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 controls the world.
Hmm.
I mean, it causes oftentimes conflicts, war between neighbors, wars in families, wars between nations and neighborhoods, and it doesn't matter because we don't realize that what we know may be wrong, and maybe the other person's wrong. What they know is wrong too. Then what do? You've got a mess. But it's all so easy to fix if people understand these things and know how the tools, know the tools to undo it. I was telling you about my boys and my family and how they watch me change.
Hmm.
Over the years that they watched me change, it it there was something I used to tell them. We used to have home church. Every
Hmm.
Sunday we would sit and I would talk about the things that I was learning from God. And they got so tired of it. They hated home church because I always talked about the same thing. But I used to tell them, look, one day you're going to thank me because I'm telling you boys, we are going to screw you up. We're your parents and we are going to teach you things that are wrong. We are going to do things that are wrong. But this is when I was beginning to come out of the up and down and having to walk on eggshells. And
Hmm.
so they're watching me change and I'm telling them, but we're going to screw you up. And there's nothing we can do about that because we wouldn't do it intentionally.
Mhm.
But what I can tell you is that I am giving you the tools so that as you get older and you realize we've screwed you up, you will be able to fix it. With
Mhm.
these tools, you will be able to fix every way that we screw you up when you realize we've screwed you up. So you
Mhm.
won't have to blame us because, yeah, we caused it, but we also have given you the tools to fix our damage. And to this day, my boys tell people everywhere that thing,
Yeah.
that tell them, here's what dad taught us. And they still talk about it because it worked. They learned how to spot, to recognize that they were believing something wrong. And oftentimes, when you're believing something is wrong, the only evidence you have that you're believing something wrong is your emotions or your behavior or something like that. And
Mhm.
and you'll say, why did I do that? Why do I feel this? I don't understand why I feel it. And that's because you're believing something is wrong, but you don't know that you're believing something wrong. And by looking at my own behavior or my own feelings, that's an indication when things are wrong. That's an indication, okay, I'm believing something's wrong. That doesn't mean I may know what I'm believing wrong. That can get frustrating because I know my behavior. I know that the way I'm perceiving something, that my perspective, that there's something wrong with my perspective. I can know it's because I'm believing something wrong, but something that's not true.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I mean by believing something wrong.
Mhm.
Believing something that's not true, and I just have to go to God and say, I need help here because it's obvious I am believing something that's not true. You know what the truth is. I need help. There are so many problems I run into
Mhm.
that I know the problem is simply when it's my reaction and my feelings, I know that it's something I'm believing that isn't true. And the thing is, God knows that, and He loves me, and He works with me to teach me what it is I'm believing it's not true, so that I can, and then He teaches me the truth so that I can correct my thinking, and and my life changes every time it happens.
Mhm.
Sometimes it'll happen multiple times in a day.
Mhm. Can you give me an example of the tools that you shared with your boys?
Gosh, yeah. We if they're having a problem with anger or with a problem with lust or uh, you know a wrong desire or maybe something is just eating at them or
Mhm.
maybe they're anxious. Anxiety is a really big one.
Mhm.
um, and I'll tell them what you do is you you talk to God about that. Okay, I'm feeling this. You know I'm feeling this, and you know that the reason I'm feeling this is because I am believing something to be true that isn't true.
Mhm.
And Father, I call God Abba because that was the name. The Jews only had one word for father, and that's Abba, short for Ab for short. And that word Abba covered everything, father, daddy, all of it together.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'll say, Abba, I'm struggling with this, and this I know that the result of or the cause for of what I'm experiencing right now is that I believe something that's not true and I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
So show me what's going on. And
Mhm.
I will get out a notebook and I write my A statement, which is what I'm thinking. And
Mhm.
so I really just free throw. And sometimes what I'm thinking is not good, but
Yeah.
I will write it down. It could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph.
Mhm.
And I will look at it and say, okay, so here's what I'm feeling, and this is what I'm thinking. And I will look at it and oftentimes realize that something I'm thinking, what? If it's like I'm thinking it, but until I hear it out loud, until I hear myself say it or see it written down,
Mhm.
I'm not as alert to it.
Yeah.
I will write down what I'm thinking and then I'll look at it and so often I realize that's stupid. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm embarrassed that I was even thinking that,
Hmm.
you know? And I
Hmm.
embarrassed myself, but nobody
Right.
else knows this is going on, just me.
Right.
And so I look for what I'm believing or thinking or saying to myself or
Hmm.
pondering or meditating on that's wrong, that's not true. And
Hmm.
then I'll say, now what is the truth? And God will always show you what the truth is.
Hmm.
And then whatever the truth is that um, undoes that lie, I start arguing with the lie. I'll say,
Hmm.
here's the lie I've been believing, but that is not true. The
Yeah.
truth is this. And I will tell myself the truth. And I
Hmm.
may actually do this for several days in a row where I come back looking at the lie and then looking at the truth. And
Hmm.
I'm reprogramming my mind. Is really what
Hmm.
I'm doing. I'm reprogramming my mind to think the truth rather than the lie. And anytime I catch myself, because down the road I may catch myself thinking the lie again,
Hmm.
um, and I may have to write it down again, or maybe I just go back to those notes and I say, no, I've been thinking this and that's a lie. Here's the truth. And I just keep telling myself the truth.
Hmm.
Hence that book, Telling Yourself the
Hmm.
Truth by Dr. William Backus.
Hmm.
And that literally caused a transformation in my thinking. And step by step, lie by lie by lie, I just kept uncovering lies. And so that's one of the keys that I taught my boys.
Yeah.
And you don't have to write it down. Just for me, it was journaling and it really helped me. And then I had a record of those. There were some of the things that I wrote down. I said, man, I can't, nobody can ever know I was thinking this. This is
Yeah.
terrible. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. So I burned those literally
Yeah.
after I was
Yeah.
all done and I was free of it. I didn't
Right.
want anybody to know I'd ever been thinking in that direction. And I just burned those books.
Yeah. And
But the
then,
other ones, most of it was stupid stuff, really silly stuff. The
sure.
vast majority of it was not horrendous. It was, I just, well, it's like my dad. Growing up, my dad had one question that he asked constantly, and that is, son, what's wrong with your mind? Can you imagine what that does to a little boy of six
Hmm.
years old
Hmm.
who his mom and his dad, all the way up until he's in his 30s and 40s and 50s, is asking him what's wrong with his mind?
Hmm.
What was wrong with my mind? They thought there was something wrong with my mind. I have no idea what.
Hmm.
I have no idea. But it did something indelibly in me that, well, there must be something wrong with my mind. And
Can't
so I
trust
spent
it.
so much of my life trying to figure out what's wrong with my mind. And that just
Hmm.
caused me to turn inward and be angry at myself and think I'm
Hmm.
worthless and I can't be loved and on and on
Hmm.
and on and on just because of that stupid question. My
Hmm.
dad had other things like that, but that was a horrendous experience. To this day, it still affects me sometimes
Hmm.
because it was being asked me before I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with a 6 or 7 year old kid.
Right.
My mom told me I was a happy kid. I was joyful.
Hmm.
And then finally she said, "You changed."
Hmm.
Well, God, if you think there's something wrong with you, then you're going to spend all your time caught up in that type of stuff instead of being a little boy.
Trying to fix it. Yeah. Um, so the writing down the truth or writing down the lie and then countering it with the truth.
Hmm.
Um, that makes me think of the renewing your mind because I mean, you've talked about hupomeno, right? Sitting under and listening and being bathed in
Hupo akuo.
hupo akuo. That's right, acoustic. Yeah. You've talked about that kind of bathing you, but that renewing your mind verse, can you tie that there? Because I forget what the renewing your mind, what the Greek is behind it and everything, but I know that it is that. It's not allowing the lies to continue and take hold and instead challenging them. Maybe it's the taking every thought captive too, but what do you think on those?
Well,
Like how do you connect that?
that's another subject. The renewing of the mind. The problem with that translation is that the Bible doesn't say that. There
Hmm.
is no renewing of the mind in Romans 12. Give me a moment here.
Sure.
Give me a moment, because I don't want to say this wrong. It's been a long time since I looked at it.
Yeah.
Once some of this becomes part of me, which this became part of me so many years ago,
Yeah.
I don't sometimes even remember where the verses are because they're just
Right.
my thinking. Give me
Yeah.
a moment here.
Yeah. Go ahead. Me and
Because
Melissa were talking about that the other day. I was saying I'm sometimes just not able to even go back into the headspace of where I didn't know this stuff.
yes.
It's
Mhm.
really hard sometimes because I unlearned it, you know. Um, and it's really hard to go back in and get myself back in my shoes of not knowing that I was believing a lie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I know. And that's, I mean, I've been on this journey now for close to 40 years.
Yeah.
And so the much of this is just so much a part of me that I think back to the scriptures and I can think in terms of the Greek, but
Hmm.
because I realize the Greek and what the translation says are two different things. But
Hmm.
here's a perfect example of, the word renewal,
Hmm.
um, the word that is translated renewing.
Hmm.
Okay. But yet you need to renew your mind, right?
Hmm.
The renewing of your mind, by the renewing of your mind. That's not the word is a noun. It's not a verb.
Hmm.
It's a noun. I mean, it's just right there. If you've got an analytical lexicon, you can check for yourself.
Hmm.
And so it's be transformed by the renewal of your mind, not the renewing of the mind. If you're the renewing of your mind means that you've got to do something. Something's got to go from here to there. Something's got to change. This is saying be transformed by the renewal of your mind. But wait a minute. That would sound like be transformed by the renewal. One way you could look at that is that your mind has been renewed. Now be transformed by it.
Hmm.
Well, actually, that's what the Greek means. That's what the Greek says, that your mind has been renewed in Christ. Because as John said, as he is, so are you in this world. So if Jesus is renewed, then you are too. Well, this opens up a whole universe of theology that Christians have not been taught, and those pastors who can teach don't know this. There's tens of thousands of people that know Greek, okay? But
Hmm.
just because you know Greek doesn't mean you understand it. All
Hmm.
right? And so they look at it, and people do word studies in Greek, and I've heard so many word studies that they didn't have it. They don't know parsing, so they don't know the components of the verb or the noun. They don't know anything about it. And all they're doing is reading what somebody else has written and
Hmm.
adding their spin to it, and it's all wrong. But it's
Hmm.
all been that way for so many centuries that nobody can believe that the Bibles they're reading are not absolutely true. They're the Word of God. They can't be changed. God's Word would not be changed. I've had people accuse me, you're changing God's Word. What's funny is that in the Old Testament, it says that you shouldn't change God's Word. You shouldn't change God's Word. But what's funny is that that law was not enforced until a few hundred years ago,
Hmm.
after it had already been changed.
Right.
So the Bible has been changed from the original, what the Greek says, what the Hebrew says, versus what the English translations are, sometimes are drastically different.
Mm.
And easy to show somebody
Mm.
who wants to take a little bit of time. I can give them tools so they can see for themselves that the Bible, the translations have been changed. They've been changed to make sense to the person who's translating. And the person who can't translate themselves, they don't know. All they can do is use a lexicon and try to figure words out.
Yeah.
They they're left in a not good spot.
Hmm.
And I really want to help people find out. Let's put it this way. Many people can translate and they can get a sense of what God meant. And oftentimes, their sense of what God meant is true.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, their sense of what God meant is completely different than what the Greek says.
Hmm.
But for me, I don't want to know what somebody thinks God meant first. I maybe down the road I want to know what other people think he meant because it may help me expand and know and grow too. But when I'm translating, I want to know exactly what God said, even if it doesn't make sense to me. I never try to make the Greek make sense. I translate literally. And oftentimes I am left baffled by what I translate. I'm
Hmm.
saying, I know God said this, but God, I have no idea what you meant. It doesn't
Right.
make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And part of that, there's a lot of components, but I was just thinking about syntax, the word order. The Greek, they put words in a different order than we do in English.
Hmm.
When I translate, I use Greek word order, not
Yeah.
English word order. That
Hmm.
adds to the confusion sometimes.
Yeah.
But when you begin to obey, which we'll talk about in the future, the word obey, when you obey as the New Testament means, you continue to ponder and meditate and talk to yourself about God's words that make no sense to you, and suddenly the light will come on and you'll know exactly. The Holy Spirit will have shown you exactly what God meant. And so often you realize it's been sitting in front of my face all this time and I didn't see it, but it's so obvious. I
Hmm.
don't know how I missed it.
That's okay. That because we're gonna keep doing it and we're gonna unpack, we're going to, yeah, explore, we're going to question, we're going to examine all that stuff. And because there's not a lack of material to understand. So we'll
That's the truth.
have plenty of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we'll wrap for now. Thanks for meeting. Always wonderful. As we continue going, we hope that ourselves and others keep learning and that the truth keeps becoming evident. So yeah, thank you, James. Love you, brother. We'll
Good,
get
good
it.
talking to you, Lee.
Good talking to you too, as always, and we'll get together again soon.